Hey everyone, your favorite mimic disguised as soulbound water here. First of all, thanks a ton to everybody that's been watching and engaging with the videos. I'm reading and responding to all of your comments, and I'm so glad to be learning about this build with everybody. First off, let's go over some of the upgrades that I've made since the last build, as well as what I've kind of changed on the Atlas tree as well as the passive tree. So first up, we have went ahead and upgraded our chest piece here. We've gone ahead and gotten something with a much larger evasion and an energy shield pull. We also rolled the physical damage taken as elemental damage and the implicits for determination aura effect and non-course aura effect as well. This is great, and it pushed us up over 1,000 energy shield, which feels really nice. Other than that, we've upgraded this ring here to get chaos resistance across the board. This will put us at capped chaos resistance. So right now we're sitting at 75 across the board, which feels really, really good. We obviously picked up the Polaric Devastation and the Yoke here, and the great things about these are their massive DPS increases. Once you get the Yoke, and I'll go over this a little bit more on the tree, you're going to need to get some kind of flat cold damage somewhere on your gear, and I've gotten that through this ring here, but a Searing Exarch implicit on your gloves is also an easy way to get it if you'd like to there. The gloves have been the same, the belt is the same, the boots are the same, and the shield is the same. We did upgrade the helmet here. We got something with more suppression, more armor, more evasion, some more lightning and chaos resistance, and flat life crafted. And then for our Eldritch implicits, we just went for more physical damage taken as elemental damage and area of effect, which would probably end up being better as max res. This build does struggle a little bit with large physical hits, so the nice thing is getting these implicit or getting this implicit here as well as this crafted mod on the chest piece goes a long way to kind of prevent more of the physical damage taken. The weapon is still the same and is now quickly becoming one of the worst pieces of gear that I currently have equipped, as well as this belt. Obviously I need to find something better here, and I might look into eventually getting into a shaper belt so we can work towards that awaken cast on crit setup. Alright, so this is what the Atlas tree looks like now. We have gone ahead and moved into a cluster jewel setup. We've got this right here with the disorienting display, prismatic heart, and sadist. We're obviously not taking the disorienting display, but we do want these two nodes here. Sadist is excellent to give us a ton of increased elemental damage since we're going to be chilling, igniting, and shocking everything. And then Prismatic Heart is great for just flat LE damage and some elemental resistances, which can be harder to come by as the gear progresses. We did pick up a Watcher's Eye. The life gain on hit Watcher's Eye is very expensive, so I went and just grabbed a Damage Leached as Life Vitality Watcher's Eye for very cheap, but there's probably better options than this before the life gain on hit one. And we grabbed some other jewels here. This is a simple Corrupting Blood Jewel, as well as attack speed and maximum life. And then my other jewels are okay, just attack speed, maximum life, crit multi with fire skills, and global crit multi. And over here again, double crit multi. We definitely want as much of crit multi that we can get on the tree and through jewels. We did have to drop these two wheels here to get the cluster jewel going, as well as we dropped this spell damage leached as energy shield node. We're going to be taking this wheel here now that we're using yoke, and with the flat cold damage on our ring, we're going to be inflicting larger chills on the enemy and taking advantage of the glacial cage notable here. Other than that, nothing has changed too much across the board. My plans from here are going to be probably to drop these two jewels right here to get into our next cluster setup, as well as maybe dropping this elemental damage node here, as this just kind of serves as a pure damage node, as well as increasing the effect of our elements, but something that can be removed in the time being to get this other cluster jewel set up. Someone had mentioned in one of the comments about further scaling the build and some of the different things you can do. I've seen some people working on or moving into an incandescent heart, Zibaqua, energized armor kind of setup, which leads to a massively, massively thick character. What you would basically do in that scenario is you're going to take your incandescent heart, and then you're going to go ahead and only run one cluster here. You're going to have to probably drop some nodes over here, whether it's this life and knife and mark wheel, and then on this side you're going to run over here, you're going to place your energized armor here and take faith in steel and devotion, and this will give you a massive amount of elemental damage taken as chaos damage and massive physical mitigation. So that can be a really good option if you're looking to kind of scale this either further or if you're looking to make a much tankier version of this build. Zabakwa, Incandescent Heart, all that stuff goes a long way to really scaling your defenses. Alright, so that's the entire passive tree here. From there, I'll go over my Atlas tree and kind of what I did. So I went over this in the last video, but this was my general idea, was to run a boss rushing strategy and to collect as many as Conquerors and Scarabs from the bosses. And my initial thought with doing something like this was to try to pull as many Scarabs out of the map by killing the bosses and getting the extra bosses from Maven. And that was working pretty well. I was actually able to sell a lot of my Conqueror and Guardian maps for anywhere from 15 to 20 C, and that was really the easiest way that I generated like my first 20 to 30 divines. But I really was underrating how good Amplified Artifacts is, and this node is insane. After watching Grimmer's latest video, and he talked about how Harbinger is busted with this notable and how we can generate tons of rare monsters in our maps with Delirium and beyond. This is now the strategy I'm going with, and this is something that I directly pulled from his latest video, so go watch that if you want to get a better understanding. I did change some things. I lost some of the map higher chance modifiers to go ahead and pick up some of the Necropolis nodes. I grabbed this top one here and this one at the bottom here as well to work on the haunted modifiers as well as the devoted modifiers. Who knows how well this will pan out, and it might be better to just go ahead and reinvest into these map nodes here to get more T17 maps and more map sustain. But I like to play with the League mechanic, and it was just updated today, so hopefully we'll start to see some good returns. One thing I am interested in is Fear of the Light. I think this could be a really fun way to engage with it, but they did just release a bunch of new All Flames, and I really want to play around with those. Alright, so this is the strategy we're going to be doing. We're going to be running cemetery maps, T16 cemetery maps, running as many Harbinger Scarabs as we can. We're going to be utilizing rusted Harbinger Scarabs here in 2 separate stacks to get 6 additional Harbingers, as well as the Scarab of Regency and the Scarab of Discernment. The Scarab of Regency is nice because it will replace 50% of the Harbingers on the map with the boss, and that does stack with this notable here, which will give us 25% chance, so we're going to be getting a ton of Harbinger bosses running around. As well as we're going to be using the Scarab of Discernment, which basically converts all of their shard drops into the shards of one type. This is obviously for the hope that we're going to get the Fracturing shard drop, which can be massive and a huge influx of cash. And the nice thing is this just makes the map really fun to run because you're always just kind of hoping for that big explosion, right? Otherwise, we're mostly running Harbinger for all the rare monsters it brings in, and again, to just really try to utilize this Amplified Artifacts node as much as possible. Alright guys, so this is an 85 Quant T16 Cemetery with some decent rolls on it. One thing that I'll definitely note is, depending on where your build is at, these builds can be extremely challenging. So for anything that's not a hit-based headhunter build, running these super juiced maps can be a little bit difficult. But realistically, the build does clear this stuff no problem. You just need to be a little conscientious of the altars you're taking, of the map mods you're rolling, and go from there. One thing I did notice after watching this back is that I did have call to arms turned off as I was recording, and the constant shouting in the background was driving me nuts. One thing you're going to want to do while you're in these maps is really try to focus down the Harbingers, right? So we're going to try to clear those guys out as much as we can. Just going to kind of clear around the map the best that we can. One thing I can suggest is if you get into the strategy and that you find it is too difficult, definitely look at maybe removing Delirium first or Beyond. If you're just finding that the mobs are way too strong for you, that might be your best bet. After doing this for a little bit, it's hard to tell if this new Necropolis stuff is even worth it, and it might be something that I already spec out of pretty shortly. I'm kind of just starting to fill up a quad tab with corpses, and I'm hoping that some people will just message me when I put in a valuable one so I can kind of start to realize what I need to be looking for. Again, we're doing this whole strategy here to try to pull as many scarabs out of the map as possible, and it's not uncommon for most of these maps to generate anywhere from 20 to 40 scarabs. And some of the scarabs right now are worth a ton. I picked up one the other day that was a 20% chance for div cards to drop as a full stack that sold for 10 divines. And I also dropped another scarab that makes sure, or it makes it so none of your other scarabs are consumed on use, and that one sold for about 7 divines itself. So there's definitely some mega juicing going out going on out there, especially for people that are utilizing some of these really expensive high-end scarabs. I can only imagine people dropping full apothecary stacks, which is kind of crazy. If you don't want to run cemetery, you definitely don't have to. It's just a layout that I like. It's a layout that I'm familiar with, and the div card drops here are pretty good. I did try running this on Crimson Temple for a little bit, and it was okay. I wouldn't recommend it. It'd be better off running it with an MFer or basically any character or Atlas tree that's set up better for div card finding. When the Harbingers got into those little alcoves, it made it super deadly in there. Yeah, just running around clearing the boss or clearing the map. Some of the nice things about the build now is that since we did get a much larger energy shield pull, I can utilize haste on the divine blessing to give more attack speed and movement speed uptime, which is really nice. Definitely something that you can't really utilize until you have a much more serviceable energy shield pull. Yeah, just grabbing the altars, looking for drops, and just kind of clearing our way towards the boss. And this is a kind of massive drop explosion up through here. And one thing I will note is I definitely need to better fine tune my loot filter at this point. It was servicing me just fine using the standard filter blade filters, but I'm going to need to make something a little bit more dedicated for this kind of farming. At this point, this is probably going to be the strategy I use to farm up the remainder of my gear, or I might look into just farming up a mage blood and working on maybe looking at running another build. I've been interested in maybe looking at doing a archmage build, or maybe going into a SSF build. But only time will tell. I'm still having a lot of fun with this build, so I think I'm going to try to push it a little bit further, see how far I can take it, see if we can't get it to a spot of just kind of near invulnerability, maybe pursue that incandescent heart style build, or even just work on getting much better Joels and a new weapon and everything like that, and work into the Awaken cast on crit setup. If anybody has any questions, I'm thinking about doing a follow-up video shortly after this. That's kind of going to be like an FAQ, whether it's about, my opinions on the build, or if you have any questions about the build, please drop them down in the comments below and then subscribe so I can release that video and maybe answer a bunch of questions at once for everybody. Doing my best to answer what I can in the comments, but maybe if we could have a concise video for people to refer back to, it might end up working better for them. Alright guys, so this is all the loot that we pulled out of the map. Nothing too major going on here. We did drop this scarab here, which is worth about 90 chaos at the time of recording. So nothing too major, but it's definitely enough here to kind of continue to snowball. And as you just stack up more and more of these scarabs, you can sell them in bulk quantities for larger and larger profit gains.